Okay, now patch 5.4 livestream technically is a week early this time around because well, next week is the Chinese New Year, so the devs aren't gonna be here. Which in turn actually provides us quite a lot of information that's everything that's been around because Alekino has just had the rerun and now we're going to be seeing some more other characters that are returning in 5.4. Now the highlight of the show is supposed to be the new character Mizuki, which is definitely a lovely designed character, but obviously what her kit actually does is also important. So as always, we're going to be diving in depth into the main character of patch 5.4 to see whether or not they are actually worth it for you to invest in, or just better yet, skip a whole patch and save for future new characters. Alekino is here and she's a character that many of you love. So if you're planning to swipe for pooling, then don't forget to check out Loot Bar. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before, since you can always save almost a 20% on all of your top-ups. With over 100,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point, you can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. Here you can see my order receipts of all of my top-ups that I have done. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description, as it can be a great way for you to save your money, especially if you are topping up a large amount. So first off, we're going to be taking a look into our Mizuki. Now if you went to the live stream, you technically had an idea of what she's capable of doing, but interestingly, she's a character that has a pretty funny kit, though I do acknowledge Hoyoverse looking into diversifying the characters, because Mizuki is a character that focuses on buffing sword damage. Overall, you're not going to be using her normal attack, so when it comes to talent upgrading, we're never going to be touching on that. The thing that we're going to be looking into, it starts from her E skill, because when she goes into her E skill, she's gonna goes into what's called a dream drifting state, where she floats around and deal AoE and Nemo damage to your surrounding opponents. Now, she does have a bit of AoE, but from the look of it, it's not going to be too large, but I mean overall, having a bit of AoE is gonna be fine. But more importantly, what her dream drifter state is going to be doing is it allows Mizuki to have sword damage increase based on her elemental mastery. Something to note is that this state will end if Mizuki leaves the field. Therefore, how we're going to be seeing that is Mizuki is going to be the on-field character for this case if you want to have like a sword damage gameplay on your team. And overall, she's going to be having a 10-second on-field approximately whenever we're adding along with her passive talent 1, which is going to be an interesting case here in terms of her team building, obviously, because what we would want to have is, since Mizuki is going to be the on-field character, the other character on your team has to be able to do sub DPS damage, right? Those are going to be like official Yamiko, Furina, Xiangling, other off-field damaging character that does not require normal attack. Weaving, like Xingqiu, Yelan, even Beidou won't be able to be on Mizuki's team because, well, from the look of it, she's not going to be doing any normal attack whenever she's in drifting state, which is something to look out for. Now her elemental burst, on the other hand, technically is going to be allowing her to become an off-field character if you want to do that, because whenever she uses her burst, there's going to be a mini Baku that follows your active character, which heals your active character if the character HP is lower than 70%. If their HP is higher than 70%, then whenever they pick up the special snack that is nearby, mini Baku will create and explode a shockwave, basically dealing AoE and Nemo damage. And even if the snack is not picked up within a certain period of time, it will instantly explode by itself as well. So we've already touched on her passive talent 1, and her passive talent 2 is rather simple as well. As long as you have your Pyro, Hydro, Cryo or Electro character hit your opponent whenever Mizuki is in her E skill, she will get 100 EM increase, which is rather nice because overall we want to stack basically as much EM as we can onto Mizuki if you're focusing on doing sword damage. So overall, in terms of Mizuki's power level, obviously relying on an Nemo character for pure damaging DPS, and in this case Mizuki is going to be focusing on sword damage, is definitely not going to be very much an appealing idea to many of us. Obviously, the amount of swording damage she is able to do comes down to how much scaling that she's going to be having. Now, I heard that she has been buffed quite slightly, but overall I don't think that is going to be enough to justify the fact that her own sword damage overall is going to be competitive to those teams that are, you know, top tier out there. But obviously, as I always say, you know, I'm pretty sure you guys already have enough top tier teams out there in Genshin Impact at this point. So Hoyoverse doing something that's slightly different, you know, introducing a character that has something basically totally different, because up until this point in time, we don't have any character that actively buffs War, and this definitely will open up some diversity in terms of team comp building if you do have a Mizuki on your team, right? Like how many others have talked about Sigewinne, you know, last year for not being that good of a character because, you know, she buffed plunging attack. And yes, most plunging attack teams can't compete against some of the top tier teams out there that we have, but overall Xiao plunging team is still pretty good. But at the end, it does open up kind of nice team comp out there for you guys to play around with. So for example, if you're someone who actually prefers Mizuki as a character, definitely speaking, having her on the team will, you know, open up some, you know, weird and nice team comp that we haven't actually focused on before, right? Because, you know, if we don't have a character that actively buffs War, most of the time we're not going to be touching on teams that focuses on sword damage too much, right? But on the other hand, if you're focusing on the meta, obviously, you know, Mizuki is definitely going to be a bit of a lackluster because there's so many great animo character out there already, especially when it comes to Sucrose being an absolutely 4-star character that you know, deletes most of the content whenever it comes to elemental reactions in terms of how much EM that she buffed, having access to TTDS, and yeah, very much easier for you guys to get her constellation as well. Now, I won't be going too in depth into Mizuki build and team comp here in this video because I'll be saving that for another one. But overall, Mizuki team comps is rather going to be interesting because it's not too hard to find the teams that can fit her in, but on that front, you know, many of the time it's kind of already replaced by, you know, a better Sucrose as a character, right? You know, for example, if you want to have her in an aggravate team, then it's overall going to be fine, right? Sometimes we have a Sucrose in the aggravate team too, and that's going to be very good. Or, you know, like a specific taser team where you have your sub DPS character doing the off-field damage and applying hydro, or, you know, electro element, and Mizuki is going to be there doing the double swirling. That's totally fine as well. And if you're looking for her to be an off-field support healer for you, I mean, yeah, she can heal. She'll be able to give you the 4-piece VV shred, and that's rather consistent. And you know, she has access to TTDs as well, right? If you want to go down that route, and while overall she will technically fit into any teams if you really want to do that, but like, yeah, there's so many other either good healer that can replace her in that specific spot, you know, quote unquote Shilonen, or, you know, that slot of her can technically be saved for other good character to build a teams out of your DPS, right? We still have Kazuha, and obviously the idea of you having a double animo on Mizuki team doesn't really sound that tempting. If you're in a group situation, you can potentially have a Venti on Mizuki's team, then that's still going to be fine in terms of grouping situation for her. But if you're going up in the Abyss, and many of the time right now we only have a solo boss situations for the Abyss, so relying on specific animo damage alone, even if it's going to be swirl, you're going to have trouble dealing with many of the Abyss to come after Mizuki, because obviously whenever Mizuki release her specific Abyss buffing is going to be rather high to support and obviously sell her as a character. But afterward, yeah, she's going to be in a rather tough spot in terms of what she is going to be capable of doing. So definitely, I can't wait until Mizuki is going to be here so that we have more testing on her. You know, who knows, hopefully Hoyoverse is going to be buffing her even further so that we can justify having her team compete into many other top tier teams. Upcoming next, we're going to be having Wrio. We haven't got Wrio reruns in quite some time, so those of you out there who love Wrio as a character, congratulations, you're going to have a chance to actually pull for him again. Now the good side about Wrio is that he is technically the best cryo DPS character we have in the game right now. So if you're still up for your cryo gameplay, yes, you can use him to clear pretty decent content. You know, some of the data of the Abyss out there, Wrio's teams are still being used, especially with some of the updates that we have got into the Natlin specific character. Wrio team has been updated quite a bit in terms of have access to, you know, Mavuika, Shilonen being on his team. If you want to go with that route, or you know, like a mono 103's team where you run along with Furina, Shanha, and Shilonen, that's technically going to be quite a fire team in terms of pushing high damage number for Wrio specifically. So if you've got those kind of character invested and prepared for your Wrio, that's overall going to be a pretty nice thing for him. But there's kind of like a big note that I want to make on Wrio whenever you're going for him, is that he's one of the character that is not complete at a C0 level, because overall out of all the character that has been released, Wrio is a character that rely insanely high on his C1 level, because well, if you don't have his C1, then he's not going to be able to make use of his passive talent 1 very well. Rather than that, it's actually pretty hard because of all the HP mechanic that is applied into his skill and kit. However, if you do have his Constellation 1, now he's going to be able to make use of his enhanced charge attack to a very high level, and yes, it is also buffed during his Constellation 1 as well, which makes it pretty reliant if you want to have a nice time using your Wrio. And so overall, whenever you're investing into a Wrio, a C1 is overall more important than you having his specific weapon, just in terms of the quality of life he has access to whenever you're using his kit. Other than that, in terms of the build specifically, there aren't too many updates regarding to that, as more or less overall which type of 5-star character you've already got on your account in order to take your Wrio team to the next level. And up next, we have our lovely cute Sigewinne. Yeah, like, what do I have to say much about Sigewinne, right? I like her design. Her color scheme, pink and blue, is something I really like. Her overall kit though is something I also enjoy, because here's the thing, what she has access to is whole team healing, which is rather important depending on which type of character you're running on your team. Just specifically a Furina, right? She has access to E-skill buffing, and her E-skill buffing is rather nice. So if you're using sub DPS off-field character, those kind of damage is going to be buffed. So those are two really nice things about Sigewinne that we have access to. But the only thing that's missing within Sigewinne's kit is she being a Hydro character that does not have access to Hydro application. I mean, if you want to force it out, you're going to be using her E-skill and then, have her bubble bounce up to a 5-tam to hopefully apply a bit of Hydro so that you can do elemental reactions off of it. But at the same time, the bubble only apply to basically a single enemy at a time. So if you're in a group situations, you're going to be in a bit of a trouble. The only way she's going to have a bit more consistent Hydro application is when she's using her elemental burst, which again sucks because it does not do much damage. At the same time, she's going to be on the field for roughly a 3 seconds, and that's going to be lower your DPS of your team quite significantly. So I don't really have much to say about Sigewinne other than you pulling for her if you really love her as a character. I pulled for Sigewinne before in order for me to do testing for you guys, but if I had more of a choice, I probably wouldn't go for her and save my Primogems for the likes of Furina, because overall Furina is going to be a character that has basically the most value when it comes to a patch 5.4. While I value Furina a lot, and she being a sub DPS character that has access to insanely high damage increase for your whole team with decent Hydro application, it's still going to be a character that you want to have on your teams for a very long time. I don't see any time when Furina is going to be, quote unquote, power crap, even if it's in the future, because the only thing that Furina does not have is the ease of healing for your team, and even that she still have access to, right? Her passive allow her to heal you for a bit, but if you want even more healing, then you can just switch her E skill to healing mode, which has pretty fast healing and a lot of healing on top of that. So if it's emergency healing, she has access to that. So obviously I can't see any world where she's going to get power crept anytime soon, or possibly until the rest of the game. But what I do have to say is that Furina is technically not complete at the C0 level. So if you're looking into investing into her, that's going to be a very powerful thing for Furina, because at C0, the time it takes for you to get a maximum damage increase from Furina's kit after you use this burst will take time, and there can be times when her elemental burst almost already ran out without her having the maximum damage increase for your team if you don't have a proper healer on your team. So if you're investing into her, consider looking into a C1 or potentially a C2, which is a really nice stopping point for Furina overall. Other than that, guys, I think I've already talked a lot about Furina in terms of her value. I don't think I have to promote how much of a good character Furina can be on your teams. And just to be mindful about how good her quality of life is going to be whenever you think about actually investing into her. So those are going to be some of the reminder regarding the character that are going to be on the main limited banner of patch 5.4, which, you know, makes me going into the part where do I think patch 5.4 banner is going to be something of a worth it for you to invest into? Because looking into it, you know, we have Mizuki as a new 5-star character that is most likely going to be a preference wise, unless Hoyoverse decide to buff her insanely. But you know, I think that's a pulling factor if you do enjoy Mizuki as a character. Wrio is for those of you who love him as a character, so that's pretty much a preference again. Or you want to have more gameplay toward your cryo team, Sigewinne is almost a no-brainer of not a pull. Then Furina again is most likely going to be the case if you do decide to pull on 5.4, which is really nice because she is going to be on the second phase, which leaves you a lot more time to save for Furina. You know, like myself, I may potentially try to get more constellation of Furina because I really do enjoy her as a character. But overall, if that's going to be the case, and you know, if you're someone who have already feel like you've already invested enough into your Furina, then technically speaking 5.4 is almost going to be a skip, because first of all, we don't know exactly which character is going to be coming in patch 5.5. However, it's basically confirmed that it's going to be one of, if not two of the tease character that Hoyoverse has shown us. Hopefully it's going to be either Skirk or Yansan, or you know, other interesting character maybe. But yeah, the best thing to do right now is obviously just to wait until Mizuki official release, and then, you know, maybe wait a bit more time, like a week time, to have her full review, as well as, you know, potentially which character is going to be coming in patch 5.5, and I'm sure it's going to be able to help you make a better decision then. Now guys, if you're deciding to pull for or save for future characters, yet you're feeling that you're lacking in Primogems, don't forget to check out Loot Bar again, as I'm sure it will be very helpful to you. If you're new to the channel guys, don't forget to subscribe, as I will have a lot more video coming for patch 5.4, and that's going to be very valuable to you. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me till this part of the video guys, and with that I wish you guys a super day, and I'll catch you on my next video.